All right, so hear me out. Based on the material we're looking at today, I am absolutely convinced that anyone, literally anyone, can become a billionaire in London.
Oh,
Seriously. You just need, like, a fake Rolex, a moderately convincing accent, and the sheer, unadulterated confidence to hang out near Harrods. That's it. That is the
yeah.
formula.
That is a flawless plan, right up until your lies inevitably catch up with you,
Yeah.
and you end up jumping off a fifth-floor balcony into the freezing River Thames.
Okay, wow, yeah. That took a dark turn
Just
fast.
keeping it realistic.
Right. Well, welcome to this deep dive, you guys. We are unpacking Patrick Radden Keefe's gripping true crime investigation, London Falling, because it proves exactly how far a fake Rolex will actually get you.
And it is a lot further than you would think.
Exactly. Today, we're exploring the completely insane true story of how a 19-year-old middle-class kid reinvented himself as a Russian oligarch's son and managed to con his way into London's most elite and dangerous circles.
But to understand this kid, you really have to understand the city that built him. The necessary backdrop here is the history of London's financial deregulation.
Which, by the way, was so intense. I mean, it took me 4 cups of coffee just to get through the chapter on the 1986 Big Bang. So many bankers, so much deregulation.
I actually checked the author's math on London's property values in those chapters, and it is a complete labyrinthine mess of offshore shell companies. But I have to admit, I love the chaos.
It is pure chaos. London essentially hung a giant no questions asked sign on its front door. But to really grasp how a teenager exploits that, we have to look at how the city physically and culturally shifted.
Right, from a gritty Dickensian shipping port with, docks and stevedores and thick smog.
Total Mary Poppins vibes.
Exactly. From that into this sanitized, gleaming billionaires' playground.
So how did that actually happen?
Well, for centuries, London was the busiest port in the world. But in the 1960s and 70s, they invented stackable shipping containers. Cargo ships simply got too big for the narrow bends of the River Thames.
So the docks just died.
Yeah. Manufacturing plummeted. The city was facing a massive economic shortfall, so they had to reinvent themselves as a financial hub. And in 1986, Margaret Thatcher initiated the Big Bang.
Right, which sounds like a sci-fi event, but was actually just a massive deregulation of the banking industry.
Exactly. Before 1986, British finance was this slow-moving, genteel old boys club. Thatcher essentially ripped up the rulebook overnight. She abolished fixed commissions, allowed foreign megabanks to buy up British brokers.
And switched the trading floors from face-to-face shouting matches to computerized high-speed trading.
Yes. It brought in a rapacious, hyper-competitive brand of capitalism. The motto literally shifted from "who do you know" to "eat what you kill."
And right on the heels of that shift, you get the fall of the Soviet Union. So suddenly, there is this massive influx of post-Soviet oligarchs who made literal billions overnight by snapping up state assets.
And they are desperately seeking a safe haven for their cash.
Right. And London eagerly rolled out the red carpet for them. They created these things called golden visas, the Tier 1 investor visa program.
Which was incredible. If you brought £2 million to the UK and parked it in government bonds or UK companies, they just granted you a residency.
And the craziest part, they asked essentially 0 questions about where you got that £2 million.
None at all. London became the world's premier laundromat for questionable wealth.
Which brings us to the aesthetic of this new wealth. Enter the Candy brothers, Nick and Christian Candy.
Oh, yes.
These 2 guys started in their 20s flipping small flats, and they basically created the entire visual vibe for this new London grad. They built One Hyde Park, this ultra-luxury complex, and outfitted it with bulletproof glass, panic rooms, and private security trained by British Special Forces.
Think about that for a second. If you are a legitimate businessman, why do you need SAS-trained guards checking your mail?
You don't. You only need that if you're running from something or someone.
Exactly, and they were catering to that exact demographic. They were outfitting private jets with jacuzzis. Christian Candy literally named his children after tax havens.
Isabella, Monaco, and Cayman. I mean, come on. So modern London essentially turns into this VIP nightclub. And the bouncer doesn't care about your ID or how much blood is on your cash. The bouncer only cares about the size of your wallet.
That's spot on.
The Candy brothers were basically gatekeeping the best parts of the city.
Yes, and if we stick with your VIP club analogy, we have to point out the most unsettling fact about this club. It is entirely empty.
Wait, really?
Completely empty.
Mhm.
If you walk past these buildings at night, the lights are off. There is a literal statistical correlation in London real estate. The more expensive a property is, the greater the chance it is totally vacant,
But why? If you drop $40 million on a penthouse, wouldn't you want to live in it?
because they aren't homes. They're financial instruments. Former officials complained these places were just safe deposit boxes in the sky.
Oh, so it's a place to park the money.
Exactly. You don't buy the apartment under your name. You create a shell company, a matryoshka doll of legal paperwork registered in the British Virgin Islands. That shell company buys the apartment. So your dirty money is now cleanly tied up in prime London brick and mortar. They created entire neighborhoods of dark windows, ghost mansions.
That is so eerie. But, this absurd environment of unchecked, fake wealth where nobody asks questions if you look the part, that was the exact incubator needed to create someone like Zac Brettler.
It was.
Because if the entire city is selling a facade, an ambitious kid with a huge ego is going to see that as a challenge.
Which brings us to Zac. And we should look at his origins because he's not born into the mafia.
No, not at all.
He's a suburban teenager from a good, comfortable middle-class family. His grandfather was Rabbi Hugo Grin, the very famous, beloved Holocaust survivor and BBC broadcaster.
A guy who literally dedicated his life to preaching decency and humanity. And Zac's parents, Matthew and Rochelle, are grounded, completely normal professionals.
But Zac was coming of age in a city absolutely drunk on foreign money. And during the dawn of the Instagram era, where perception is literally everything.
Right. And the tipping point for him seems to be his education. Zac's older brother got into a highly elite academic school called UCS. Zac applied, struggled with the math, fumbled the interview, and got rejected.
Twice. He got rejected twice.
Right. And for a kid desperate for status, that rejection is a deep psychological wound. So he ends up at Mill Hill School instead.
Yeah, and Mill Hill is where he is suddenly exposed to the ultra-wealthy children of actual, literal oligarchs.
Yeah.
Kids like Evgeny Lebedev, whose father was a billionaire ex-KGB colonel.
Just imagine you are Zac sitting in class. These international rich kids are taking private Ubers just to travel from their dorms to the cafeteria.
They're wearing bespoke designer suits instead of the mandated school uniforms.
Yes. And the teachers just look the other way because their parents fund the school. The lesson Zac learned there was crystal clear. The rules do not apply if you have money.
So he became fixated on that swagger. He started adopting different personas. He and his friend Dimitris became obsessed with the movie War Dogs, specifically the character Ephraim Diveroli.
Right. Diveroli was a fast-talking, real-life hustler who figured out who people wanted him to be and simply became that person.
And Zac studied that cadence. He learned how to talk aggressively enough that people were simply too intimidated to ask him clarifying questions.
He went all in. Zac incorporated a fake company he called Omega Stratton, which is a wildly ironic nod to the fraudulent brokerage Stratton Oakmont from The Wolf of Wall Street.
It really is.
He started wearing this expensive Italian Moncler ski vest as his daily uniform, carrying a briefcase to high school, pretending he was trading millions between classes. And honestly, I'm going to defend Zac's hustle here for a second.
Oh, really?
All right. Hear me out. He was just adopting the modern tech bro mantra of fake it till you make it. If you've ever tried to fake your way through a job interview by using buzzwords you barely understand, you get it. He's 18, he wants to be a player, he's projecting confidence. This chapter is a total mood.
Okay, I have to give you a hard reality check on that.
Uh-oh.
Because faking an 850,000-pound bank balance on an iPad isn't just a tech bro pitch. And we need to look at how he did it. He didn't just type a number into a notepad app. He mocked up a highly convincing interactive banking portal UI to show to his own father, just to impress him.
Wow.
He was building an alternate reality, and it escalated violently. One night, in a rage over an argument about wanting a bigger house and nicer cars, Zac actually choked his own mother.
Oh my God.
He throttled her over real estate. That is the birth of a dangerous pathology. He was evaluated by a psychiatrist who noted a dangerous lack of insight and strong narcissistic traits.
Okay. I am definitely not excusing the violence against his mom. That is awful. But you have to admit, there's a difference between a deeply troubled kid lashing out at home because his ego is bruised and a hardened criminal mastermind. Was he really a pathological monster or just a teenager who got in way over his head?
It's a fair distinction. He wasn't a criminal mastermind, but he was highly manipulative. And when you mix narcissism with desperation, you get a con artist.
Right.
To play in the big leagues, a con artist needs marks. And when Zac stepped out of his parents' house and into adult London, he found the perfect, unsuspecting targets.
And he found them through what seemed like a miraculous stroke of luck. Zac somehow gets chatting with a guy named Mark Foley at an exclusive members club.
Now, Foley isn't some naive tourist.
No. He is an executive at Chelsea Football Club, which at the time was owned by the ultimate Russian oligarch, Roman Abramovich. Yet Zac flawlessly fools Foley into believing that he is Zac Ismailov, the son of a recently deceased Russian billionaire, tasked with investing his family's vast fortune.
Which really raises the question, how on earth does a teenager fool a seasoned executive who rubs shoulders with actual billionaires every day?
Because Foley wanted to believe it. Zac had the Moncler vest, the unshakable eye contact, and the vague, unverifiable backstory. Plus, Foley was probably used to dealing with eccentric, inappropriately young Russian heirs. Zac fit the stereotype perfectly.
Exactly. Foley doesn't do a basic background check. He takes Zac at face value and introduces him to an associate, Akbar Shamji.
Right, Akbar.
Akbar is a flashy Mayfair businessman who lives in a 10 million pound apartment, runs a purportedly massive renewable energy company, and walks an elegant Weimaraner dog named Alpha Nero around the poshest squares in London.
But Akbar has his own baggage. His father, Abdul Shamji, was a notorious fraudster involved in the massive Johnson Matthey bank collapse in the 1980s.
Let's actually pause on that, because it is crucial context.
Yeah, please, because for those of us who don't have a PhD in 1980s British financial scandals, what actually happened there?
The Johnson Matthey bankers' collapse was one of the biggest scandals of the Thatcher era. It was a massive gold bullion bank that essentially went bust because it was making huge, reckless, undocumented loans to a small group of fraudsters, including Akbar's father.
Oh, wow.
The Bank of England had to step in and rescue it to stop a systemic banking crisis. So Akbar grew up watching his father operate in the gray areas of high finance.
Got it. So Akbar, carrying this legacy, introduces Zac to a guy named Verinder Sharma, known on the streets as Indian Dave.
Yes?
Verinder is this hulking ex-enforcer with a terrifying history of violence and extortion, who has somehow rebranded himself as a legitimate property manager. And Verinder actually becomes Zac's landlord at Riverwalk, a hyper-luxury building right on the Thames.
This setup defies all logic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How does Akbar Shamji, a 40-something Cambridge-educated international businessman, fall for a 19-year-old's fake Russian accent?
I know.
And how does Verinder Sharma, a hardened street enforcer who can spot a lie a mile away, get taken in by a kid from the suburbs?
I have a theory on this. It's like three guys sitting at a high-stakes poker table, aggressively raising each other's bets, pushing all their chips into the center. But none of them realize that nobody at the table actually has any chips in their stack. It's a standoff of mutual delusion.
That is the perfect analogy. And it leads us to the big truth of this chapter. Absolutely everyone in that circle was faking it.
Everyone.
Akbar was a failed businessman, constantly riding his disgraced father's coattails, desperately looking for a cash injection to save his failing companies. Verinder was a violent thug pretending to be a civilized, high-end property manager to launder his reputation.
And Zac was a teenager pretending to be an oligarch.
Zac's mother, Rochelle, summarized it perfectly when she finally learned the truth. She said they were three bullshit artists selling air.
It's a total house of cards. I mean, Akbar thinks Zac is going to fund his real estate ventures. Verinder thinks he's housing a billionaire's son who will eventually buy the penthouse. Zac thinks he's finally living the Wolf of Wall Street lifestyle he's always dreamed of.
And none of them actually have the money they are projecting.
They are all just staring at the shiny surfaces of each other's fake Rolexes.
But this isn't a victimless illusion. When fake money meets real gangsters, the illusion shatters violently. Because eventually, the restaurant bills come due, the rent comes due.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the terrifying events of November 29, 2019, which led to Zac's death.
The scene is Verinder's luxury apartment, Unit 504. Which, incredibly, sits directly across the River Thames from the giant green glass headquarters of MI6, Britain's secret intelligence service.
During Zac's final days in that apartment, the facade had completely cracked. He was totally out of money. He wasn't wiring millions from a Swiss account. His real bank account was down to exactly £4.
Oh, man.
Akbar and Verinder realized they'd been had. The kid wasn't a golden goose. He was a liability who owed them money. The police later recovered chilling text messages from that period. At one point, Akbar texted a friend in the music business, casually mentioning that he was heating up knives and clearing up blood.
That is absolutely horrifying. And Zac's digital footprint from those last few hours is incredibly dark. I mean, imagine you're 19, trapped in this ultra-modern, soundproof apartment with an ex-enforcer. Minutes before his death, Zac is on his iPad searching for Witness Protection UK.
Right.
A few minutes later, he searches what to do with skin burns.
Which ties directly back to Akbar's text about heating up knives.
Yep.
The implication is severe physical torture.
Man, you're killing my vibe with these facts. But wait, then we have the MI6 camera footage. Because of the building's high security, a camera across the river captures the balcony of Unit 504.
Yes.
At 2:23 in the morning, a slender silhouette walks out onto the balcony. He walks to one corner, peers over, he crosses to the other corner, hesitates. Then he returns to the center and jumps. Wait, if Akbar and Verinder are torturing him because he owes them money, killing him makes zero sense. A dead teenager can't pay you back.
Right.
So his jumping off the balcony wasn't an execution, it was a desperate escape attempt gone horribly wrong.
Precisely. If we break down the physics and the psychology of that moment captured on tape, it paints a tragic picture. He didn't just stumble and fall accidentally, and the footage clearly shows no one was standing behind him. He wasn't physically pushed.
So why jump? Why didn't he just call the police or run out the front door?
He walked to the furthest, most protruding edge of that curved balcony. Why? Because he was ensuring that when he jumped, he would clear the concrete pavement 5 stories below and hit the deep water of the Thames.
Oh my God.
He didn't want to die. He was a terrified kid trying to escape a monster, and the freezing river was the only exit he thought he had left.
But surely, with those text messages about heating knives, the Google searches about burns, and the camera footage, Akbar and Verinder are immediately locked up, right? The evidence is right there on their phones.
You would think so. But that brings us to the infuriating aftermath of Zac's death and how the police handled, or rather bungled, the investigation.
I mean, when Zac goes missing, Akbar and Verinder play completely dumb. They tell Zac's parents that Zac had secretly confessed to being a runaway heroin addict and that he must have just slipped out into the night to score drugs.
Yeah.
And even when Zac's body is finally found washed up on the mud of the Thames days later, they stick to this ridiculous narrative.
And the Metropolitan Police just buy it.
What?
The lead detective, Rory Wilkinson, and his team completely lose what law enforcement calls the golden hour of the investigation, that crucial window right after a crime where evidence is fresh. They fail to even search Verinder's apartment for 4 full days.
4 days. Why?
Because of the environment. When underfunded, overworked police officers walk into a £5 million luxury apartment in Mayfair, there is a systemic bias. They defer to the wealthy occupants. They don't treat a Cambridge-educated businessman and a luxury property manager like street-level suspects.
So they just gave them a pass.
By the time they finally get in there, Verinder had hired a professional cleaning service. The glass on the balcony had been meticulously wiped clean right where Zac jumped.
That is infuriating. The police just looked at the fancy suits and the expensive postcode, and it's like they're reading the terms and conditions on a software update, just blindly clicking agree to whatever lies Akbar and Verinder told them and completely ignoring the red flags.
It is a profound failure of curiosity. And the ultimate twist to this whole saga. A year after Zac's death, Verinder Sharma mysteriously dies in that very same Riverwalk apartment, supposedly of a drug overdose.
Let me guess. The police didn't investigate that too deeply either.
The coroner recorded an open verdict for his death.
Wait, open verdict. For those of us outside the UK legal system, that basically means the authorities threw their hands up and said, we know he died, we know the circumstances are highly suspicious, but we don't have the explicit proof to legally declare it a murder or a suicide. Right?
Exactly. It's an admission of unresolved suspicion. And they recorded the exact same open verdict for Zac's death. So Verinder takes whatever really happened in that room to his grave.
So the lead suspect dies, Akbar Shamji walks away clean to start another renewable energy scam, and Zac's parents are just left with this gaping hole in their lives and zero justice.
It is a devastating outcome for the family. But if we zoom out from the crime scene and look at the big truth of this story, Zac wasn't an anomaly. He was a symptom of a much larger macroeconomic shift.
How so?
Think about what London became after the 1986 Big Bang, when an entire economy shifts away from creating tangible value like shipping goods or manufacturing products and pivots entirely to hoarding intangible wealth, like vacant real estate and offshore shell companies. Society loses its grip on reality.
Right. It loses its ability to distinguish actual value from fraud.
London's entire financial ecosystem is built on looking the other way. If you pretend to be rich in London, doors open for you. The police are institutionally trained not to ask hard questions about wealth operating behind tinted glass.
So Zac was really just playing the game by the city's own rules. He was a boy utterly consumed by the modern algorithm of wealth, trying to manifest a fake reality in a city that historically rewards fakeness. And he played it perfectly, right up until his virtual reality ran headfirst into the brick wall of real-world violence.
That is the tragedy. He bought into the illusion completely.
Wrapping this deep dive up, this story really makes you look around your own city and wonder how much of the world around us, the luxury cars, the penthouses with the lights off, the perfectly curated social media feeds, is just a highly convincing facade.
Well, I will give you a cynical homework assignment to test that exact theory. Tonight, look up the ownership of the fanciest, most obnoxious luxury high-rise in your city.
Hmm.
Dig into the public property records. I bet you anything the penthouse isn't owned by a person. It's owned by a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands or Liechtenstein, holding dirty money disguised as real estate.
Ugh. Researching shell company tax records sounds entirely too much like actual work. You are completely ruining my escapist fantasies of becoming a real estate mogul. I just wanted the cool Moncler vest and the jacuzzi on the jet.
Well, I'll leave you with one final, haunting thought. If an entire city's economy is built on a collective hallucination of wealth, if the banking system actively encourages people to sell air, who is really to blame when a teenager dies trying to make that hallucination real? Does the city kill the boy? Or does the boy kill himself?
Wow. From a teenager looking out over the glittering lights of the Thames to a dark plunge into the freezing water. That is a heavy, heavy question to leave us with. Thanks for diving deep with us.